So if you want to open the middle of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7 is the Sermon on the Mount. And there's this one little line in Matthew 6 that I want us to start 2019 in. And I want us to crockpot in this thought, okay? I want us to marinate in this thought of seeking God's kingdom first. There's lots of things that are important. There's lots of things to busy us. There's lots of urgency, urgent things. But what is first? What is primary? What is the most important? I've had a lot of meals in my life. But if I had one, if I knew that this was my last meal, I know exactly where I would go, okay? I am as Jimmy John's as the next guy. I love it, okay? But I'm not going to Jimmy John's for my last meal, okay? I like my chili. As we all know, chili does not have beans in it. That's true. Google me, okay? Chili does not have beans in it. It's tomato meat soup. It's awesome. I like my chili, but if I've got one meal, it's not my chili. If I have one meal, if I know that tonight, midnight, game's up, okay? If I know that I have one meal, I would get on me a jet airplane right now, fly to Orlando, buy me a big expensive ticket to go into Epcot. I would walk in through the entrance, past the big golf ball, to my right, and I would go to Canada in World Showcase. In Canada, in the pavilion in Canada, is a restaurant called Le Cellier. That's French. French-Canadian, actually. Le Cellier. That's French for the Cellier, whatever that means. Okay? So I would go and eat. I don't know what it is about that place. That's my favorite place. The steak tastes better. The potato is better. The appetizer is this big bread basket with soft pretzel sticks in it. It's awesome. The dessert is this chocolate something, and it's in the shape of a moose. It's got the big antlers on it. Okay? That if I had one meal, that's where I'd go. Okay, Rich, what are you talking about? Okay, here's the deal. There's no urgency right now because I think I'm going to have more than one meal. Okay? I just figure I'm going to eat most of this week. And I hope most of the rest of the month and throughout 2019. But if I had one shot to eat one last meal, that's what I'd want. There are lots of things to busy us, distract us, get our attention. But when it comes to simplifying our lives and prioritizing our lives, there are fewer and fewer and fewer things that are most important. And so in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 6, we find this story. I'm actually not even preaching from this passage, but I want to read it to you. Matthew chapter 6, verse 25, starting there, it's talking about don't worry. But it's not that Jesus is dour and downcast and somber. Sometimes we get this picture of a somber Jesus. Like he's all hunched over and he's furrowing his brow and he's very, very sourpuss Jesus. Okay? I don't think that's right. He's not hippie Jesus either, by the way. Okay? Just because he had long hair and sandals doesn't mean he's got a peace sign t-shirt and he's hugging trees and everything. But in this passage here, it says, don't worry. Verse 25, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life. That's interesting, coming from Jesus. Do not worry about your life, what you will eat and drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See the flowers of the field grow? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you? You've little faith. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans, those who are lost, those who are ungodly, the pagans run after these things. Your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Folks, most of the things we scurry around doing and thinking every day, at the end of it all, are unimportant. Okay, now does that mean that Jesus is just going to go buy a hammock somewhere, string it between two trees, and rock his life away, in the Jamaican sunset? I don't think so. This is also the same Jesus that says, plant and work so that you can receive the harvest. But he's saying, don't worry about it. Don't fret about it. Don't let it consume you, because the pagans let it consume them. But, verse 33, and this is what I want us to get and sit in these first few weeks. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Okay, from that story, from that theme, I want us to start off 2019 here in the next couple of weeks. I want us to get what is most important, what is primary, what if we can only focus on one thing, if we've got to simplify our lives, we've got a to-do list of 50 things, but if I get one thing done today, it's got to be this. What's first? What's most important? I want you to stand up with me and turn to the book of Luke, because I'm actually going to be preaching a story from the book this morning that I believe illustrates this point that Jesus is making in Matthew chapter 6. So at the end of chapter 10 of Luke is the story of Mary and Martha. And like Paige said a minute ago, sometimes we hear stories so often that we kind of get numb to it. We've heard the story so often that oh yeah, okay, I've heard that one before. I want you to listen again this morning. Luke chapter 10, verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way to Jerusalem, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister named Mary, and their brother's name was Lazarus, okay? She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted. Going back to Matthew chapter 6, she was worried. She had stuff to do. She was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to Jesus and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. This is the word of the Lord for the people of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You can be seated. Here's where I want you to start this morning. You've probably heard this passage preached before, and it usually goes something like this. Martha was scurrying around doing stuff. Very, very busy. Very, very important stuff. Mary sat at the feet of Jesus. Don't be like Martha, be like Mary. Have you heard that message before? Okay. I'm going to try not to give that message to you today. Let me say this. The Lord needs Marthas, and the Lord needs Marys. The Lord needs us to work. The Lord needs us to, there's stuff to do. Even in this room, in preparation for Sunday morning, there's stuff to do. When I tell Joe and when I tell Brenda that we're going to have the Lord's Supper on Sunday morning, these things don't just magically appear. I mean, they do for me because I don't do it, but somebody does this. Okay? After we come in here and we make a train wreck of this room after we do our Christmas party, somebody vacuums in here. Did you know that? Somebody comes in here with a vacuum cleaner and cleans up all the stuff that you people dropped. I don't drop things, but you drop things. And we clean them up. Somebody makes the coffee on Sunday mornings. John went and got Krispy Kreme donuts. Were there still donuts back there? Were there still donuts before the service? Okay, y'all should have come to the early service. It's John's birthday, and to help us to celebrate John's birthday, he bought us all donuts. But we just don't wake up on Sunday mornings. I mean, I wish it happened like this, but we just don't wake up on Sunday morning and poof, Krispy Kremes appear in the foyer. There is work to do. And folks, here from the story of Mary and Martha in Luke chapter 10, we see this, that there's stuff to do. But if we all come and sit at the feet of Jesus and just feed and feed and feed and feed and never get up and go and work, we grow fat. But if we never sit at the feet of Jesus and go and all we do is go work, we grow weak and die. So there's got to be somehow a bit of a balance, like a mobile up above a baby's crib. Little Jackson, when Jackson was little, we had little Winnie the Pooh mobile. And here's little Eeyore and little Pooh and little Tigger and such. And if you take one of those off, that little mobile goes wonk, right? But in balance, it does what it's supposed to do. Folks, we should be a balanced people where we are working because, folks, there's work to do. There's work in the kingdom. We don't just come and say, I'm a Christian, and we just sit and we constantly feed. But folks, if we don't feed, we'll have nothing to give. And in the story of Mary and Martha, I love here, there's several details. First of all is this: Martha's doing good stuff. Martha's preparing her house because who's coming to town? Jesus is coming. I don't think that it was a text message. It wasn't a Facebook post, hashtag Mary and Martha's house, But somehow they knew that Jesus and his disciples were coming. They got about the work of preparing the place for Jesus. Martha's running around. She's cleaning the house. She's making preparations for a meal. She's cooking. She's laying out the plates and such and getting things ready for Jesus to come. She's doing very good stuff, proper things. Meanwhile, she starts to look around and she doesn't see Mary, her sister. Now, folks, don't shoot the messenger. 2,000 years ago, the kitchen was the proper place for the women of her day. I knew it. I could have scripted that. Right now, I just like to distance myself from the amen that come from the back. Okay? But 2,000 years ago, if you were a Jewish woman, you would have been doing the work of the household, and the men folk would have been out in the front room with the rabbi, listening to him. And sitting at the feet of Jesus, reflected here in the scripture, sitting at the feet of Jesus wasn't a subservient spot. That was a disciple spot. The book of Acts, back in 2018, we preached through the book of Acts, and part of that said Saul, later Paul, Saul sat at the feet of Gamaliel, his rabbi. So sitting at the feet of Jesus would have been the proper place for a disciple. Mary, who should have been helping Martha prepare. Mary breaks boundaries here. And Jesus, by allowing her to come, breaks boundaries. Mary is sitting at the feet of of Jesus. Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, putting her place in the spot of a disciple, wanting to be like Jesus, wanting to teach what Jesus taught. She wanted to hear from him and feed. She wanted to learn. Martha's problem comes in here. Martha's scurrying around, she's cleaning up the place, she's preparing, she's doing the work, she's making the food. Then she starts to look around. And she sees Mary sitting. Comparison is a killer. Okay? We're often very happy with our houses until we see somebody with a better house. Okay? Dana and I, when we got married, we went home from our honeymoon to a dump of an apartment. Our next place that we moved was it was a converted garage. We thought it was the Taj Mahal. It was awesome because it was better than the first place. Then we moved around another corner. It had less than 900 square feet. But we thought we had just moved into a mansion. And then we moved into our next place. It had a basement. I never thought I would be so rich. Okay? We often are very satisfied and happy with the things we have until we see others. Martha, I think, was pretty satisfied with her lot in life, scurrying around and preparing and cleaning and doing what she did until she saw Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus. Folks, don't apply your life to somebody else's. Okay? You follow Jesus. You follow Jesus and let Jesus just kind of figure out what everybody else is doing. Comparison's also a liar. Okay, so Martha spies Mary. Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus. And what does Martha think? Martha just thinks that Mary's being lazy. No, she's not. She's sitting at the feet of Jesus. She's learning. She's soaking it in. Here's what Martha did right. Here's what Martha did right. Martha, instead of going and screaming at Mary or complaining to the other people in the kitchen or getting on Facebook and getting all drama-ish, she went right to Jesus. She took her complaint to Jesus. She took her lament to Jesus. She went to the one who could actually do something about it. Folks, I'm coming up this year. I'm going to preach this very biblical principle. Folks, when all we do is sit around and negative talk, that is complaining, it's gossip, whether it's true or not. It's negativity that is a cancer in the church. Not this one, of course, but other churches. But if negativity, just to voice negativity, and there is no object or correction in sight, that's just spewing negativity. And folks, I don't want to live in that here. And I don't think you do either. Now, there's a difference between having something negative to say and you want to be part of the solution. Okay? And going to somebody who has some authority or can make a change, or, God forbid, we be perfectly biblical, and if I have a problem with Lou, I go to Lou instead of going to Jason to complain about Lou. Where did that come from? Lou, I've got this problem. Let's talk about it. Let's get it taken care of. Let's address it. And as brothers in Christ, we come to some kind of an agreement and we move on with life because we love Jesus more than we want to focus on the things that distract us and are destructive in our relationship. Martha went to Jesus and said, "Help, make her help me." And Jesus did with Martha what I think he does with us so often. Jesus responded to her beautifully. Jesus responded to her tenderly. Jesus responded to her with grace. And Jesus also changed her mindset. But Jesus comes to her and says, "Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few are needed, Few are the priority. Martha, I'm glad that you've prepared a meal. I'm glad that you cleaned up a little bit because Lazarus isn't helping. I'm glad that you did your best to prepare for me and for my disciples. But Martha, right now, I'm here. I'm here. Quit scrubbing pans. Quit dusting. Come and be with me. You're worried, you're distracted, you're thinking about so many things, but only one is needed. One is truly needed. And I'm not going to take that away from Mary. Only one thing is truly needed: true relationship, true communion with Jesus. My point this morning isn't be like Mary, don't be like Martha. It's, folks, if you have one shot and Jesus is in the house, spend time with Jesus. When Dana and I were getting ready for our house to sell and trying to sell our house in Portland last year, we didn't do it ourselves because we don't know how to do that, but we had somebody come in and paint. We had somebody come in and put new carpet in. We had tile put down in the places where we had wanted tile in our house for 11, 12 years, and we just had never done it. We did all these improvements. We scrubbed and we cleaned, and then we cleaned, and then we cleaned, and then we showed the house, and then we cleaned some more, and then we found out that somebody was coming tomorrow, and we cleaned some more. We re-cleaned a clean house for 3 months. And I got to tell you, my house right now, if you were to come by my house, don't do that, by the way. But if you were to come by my house right now, it's in pretty good shape. It's in decent shape. But if I knew an hour ahead of time that you were coming to my house, I would clean up, or at least Dana would make me clean up a few things. Dana would clean, and she'd give me a job to do, and I'd do my job. But when you get there, you stop cleaning. Stop cleaning. And spend time with the one who's the guest of honor. In the summer of 1990, I was a college student, and I went on Youth and Missions. It's a missions program for young adults in the Church of the Nazarene, and I went to Ireland. And we spent the summer, 10 weeks, with the one Nazarene church in Ireland. Everybody in Ireland's Irish Catholic, everybody. And there's a tiny, tiny little group of evangelical, Protestants, and there's one little Nazarene church, and it was about 30 people back then. And we spent the summer there, and the lady who was kind of our sponsor, the lady who was in charge of us, her name was Susanna Fawcett. And she was kind of a recovering hippie from the late 60s, early 70s. And so she gave me a lot of wisdom that summer. And one of the things she shared with me that now, all these years later, almost 30 years later, has always stuck with me is this. She said, Rich, in all your running around and working for the Lord, enjoy Him. If you know that Jesus is coming, make preparations. Make preparations. Prepare the meal. Clean your house. If you know that Jesus is coming, but when Jesus shows, you put the rag away and you sit at the feet of Jesus. Martha was busy with good stuff, scurrying around, going and doing. All of those things are important, but not more important than sitting at the feet of Jesus and learning. Amen. Folks, in Matthew 6, Jesus gives us a principle. It's not just a don't worry. Be cool, man. It's not just a don't worry. Things will work out. Bobby McFerrin, don't worry, be happy. It's not that. It's not that. What he's saying is, Jesus is saying, folks, there are a lot of things that we get consumed by and overwhelmed by, and your to-do list is 45 things long, but in that big, long list of things, there's one that's most important. Don't get sidetracked and miss the most important thing just because you're busy. Amen. Every week, I've got a to-do list. Every week, I imagine you've got a to-do list. When I was a freshman in college, we had a suite of 4 rooms, 2 guys in each room, and we had one central bathroom, which means 8 stinky college freshmen, 19-year-olds, had one bathroom. Wow. And at one point, right before finals, I went into my suite mate, I went into another guy's room and said these words, man, I've got so much stuff to do. It was on a Sunday night, getting ready for finals week. Man, I've got so much stuff to do. The words were still hanging in the air, like cartoons, like the bubble. The words were still hanging in the air when another one of our guys from another room came in and said, man, I've got so much stuff to do. And then number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We all ended up in one room. We all at some point had said, man, I've got so much stuff to do. So you know what we did? We ordered pizza and hung out for another 2 hours. Don't get so caught up in the immediate. Don't get so caught up in the loudest thing in your life that we forget what is primary. Seek first God's kingdom. What does that look like in your schedule? What does that look like in your family? What does that look like where you work? What does that look like in your checkbook? Seek first God's kingdom. And then all these other things can be added. In fact, He's the supplier. More likely than not, He will add them. When we put things in proper order, when we give Him the proper place, when we sit at the feet of Jesus and learn from Him. We're going to pray together, and then we're going to come to the table this morning. Would you pray with me? God, would you help us?